pandemics. We all know a lot about them. In fact, we're living through one just right now, and it affected everyone, everywhere. The COVID-19 pandemic influenced our life so much that even that going outside has become an event. I mean, tell me you don't know someone who got COVID. Impossible. The COVID-19 pandemic infected, just in Italy, 1.5 million people. The COVID-19 outbreak influenced our life, our routines, our daily life of every day. Personally, it took away my passions, swimming and acting. Can you imagine acting on stage with masks while social distancing? Frustrating at best. Well, let's go and talk about something more serious. The economic and social disruption is devastating. Millions of people are at risk of falling into extreme poverty, while the number of undernourished people is reaching 690 million and could increase up to 132 million by the end of the year. Half of the 3.3 billion global workforces are at risk of losing their livelihood. Informal economy workers have no quality healthcare, no productive access, and have lost the lack of social protection. And as if it was not enough, people are workers have no money to buy food for themselves and their family. It's not the first time in history that we humans go through a pandemic. Pandemics have flogged us regularly. I live in Milan, Italy, and Italians have had their toll of pandemics throughout history. You might have heard of the Black Death. The Black Death was a serious pandemic that struck not just Italy, not just Europe, but the whole world in the mid 300s and the mid 600s. But probably now you're asking yourself, how did the pandemic, how did they solve the pandemic? How the pandemic arrived? What happened? How did they manage to solve this pandemic? Well, we have testimony of this thanks to historical literary sources. In October 1347, 12 ships arrived from Asia to the port of Messina, Sicily, Italy. All the sailors aboard were either dead or gravely ill. Sicilian authorities ordered the immediate quarantine of the ships, but this didn't help because the disease spread equally. In fact, it killed approximately one-third of the whole world population in just 5 years. There is an important Italian writer and Renaissance humanist who wrote in the 14th century about what happened and the reaction of people, Giovanni Boccaccio. I'm going to read you one of his quotes. The plight of the lower and most of the middle classes was even more pitiful to behold. Most of them remained in their houses, either through poverty or in hopes of safety, and fell sick by thousands. Since they received no care and no attentions, almost all of them died. I see some parallels with what's happening today, like poverty, lockdowns, suffering, and obviously death. No one can escape from death. But let's go to northern Italy, who was struck by another epidemic from 1629 to 1631. This plague killed approximately 45,000 people just in the city of Venice, and trust me, for the time, 45,000 people were a lot. It arrived from German soldiers that died in Milan because of a war. Italians had the brilliant idea of stealing their uniforms, and guess what? They were infected. Alessandro Manzoni, an important Italian novelist, wrote about what happened in the 19th century, and today I'm going to read you another quote. People were despaired. Like so many wild creatures, they were carrying some imaginary safeguards against the disease, such as mint, rue, or rosemary, and even vinegar. The commissioners became alarmed and recognized the terrible evidence of the plague. So, orders were given to close the gates of Milan. I see some parallels with what happened that day and today too. Like desolation, efforts to find a cure, vaccines for example, today. And, most important one, authorities finally taking steps towards a lockdown. In fact, if we go back at the start of the coronavirus pandemic, most governments thought it was just a simple influenza and it did nothing. Until it was too late, and it spread in all the world. Can we say that history repeats itself? Well, we have at least one pandemic a century, and guess what? They all start in the same exact way. Governments and people think it's just a simple influenza, it's just a simple fever, it's nothing. Until it gets too worse and it spreads, until it's unmanageable, and we can't do nothing to solve it. Well, I'm an great student, and I study history at school, like many other students. We study wars and people and events. We study how the past has shaped national, global, local relationships between societies and people. But in light of what's happening today, shouldn't we add to our history program the history of pandemics? We need to learn from the past in order to prevent yet another pandemic in history. I think it's time for us to learn from the past and the present to live a better future. Thanks.